Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. My name is Lindsey Funtik, and I am the coordinator of volunteer ministries at Ashland First United Methodist Church. And I'm here today rocking my VBS t-shirt as we've been enjoying that this week. Every Thursday, I hop on Facebook to make a video to share a little bit about what the Lord has been teaching me and my devotional thoughts from throughout the week. So for those of you who are just tuning in, welcome. And for the members of Ashland First United Methodist, I love you. As always, I think of you and I pray for you. So this morning, I have been going through 2 Kings. You all have been following kind of my journey as I learn things throughout the Old Testament, revisiting some of the books that I had not yet dug into. So working through 2 Kings, and I came upon a story in 2 Kings 5 that tells about Naaman, who is the commander of the armies of Aram, and Naaman comes down with leprosy. And he is encouraged to go see the prophet Elisha so that he might receive healing. So he takes that advice and he goes, and Elisha says, wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. And Naaman is not too excited about this advice. One, because he was kind of expecting just wave a hand over and be healed. And also he views Israel's waters as not as good as his own waters. So he's like, well, why would I wash in the Jordan River? So he's kind of throwing a little bit of a fit, but he eventually is encouraged to go and do as he is told, and he receives healing. And when he does receive healing, he completely is transformed, and he gives his life over to Yahweh God. And so that is all well and good. He offers the prophet Elisha not a reward, but a gift for performing that healing, and Elisha is having none of it. So Naaman goes on his way, and Elisha has a servant, Gehazi, who is thinking that Elisha messed up, that he should be paid for the healing. He should get something out of it. So Gehazi follows Naaman down the road, gets a reward, takes the gift that he was offering, and because of his dishonesty in doing what Elisha said he didn't want to do, Gehazi is actually struck with leprosy himself. So that is a very flyover view of this story. And as I was reading it, there are a lot of things that I actually like about this story. Central to it is healing and transformation and being given over, or being transformed and committing yourself to the one true God. So I love to see the transformation that Naaman goes through. But the piece that I felt the Spirit leading me to meditate upon was the servants, because the servants played a huge role. And it got me thinking about servanthood in general. So first, when Elisha first discovers that he has leprosy, the person who encourages him to go see Elisha is a servant girl, and not just any servant girl, but a girl who has been captured and brought into Naaman's household to serve his wife. So she was brought in, and she's the one who says in verse 3, if only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. So first we have this servant girl who points Naaman toward Elisha. Next, when Naaman is upset about Elisha's prescribed actions to get rid of the leprosy, it is a group of servants who are basically like, well, why don't you just do it? In verse 13, they say, Naaman's servants went to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more than when he tells you, wash and be cleansed? So, working through some of his anger, it's his servants that say, hey, why don't you just go ahead and do it? This can be a good thing. And finally, we have Gehazi, who is the servant who ends up being a little bit less wise in his actions and goes to get the reward, basically saying, oh, my master did not make the right move here. I'm going to take matters into my own hands. So we have Gehazi. So, in some ways, I've been thinking about how these three examples of servanthood can help us to think about being servants of the living God. For those of us who follow Jesus, we are servants of Jesus. And thankfully, he is the perfect master. And I wholeheartedly believe that we serve something in life. So, whether it's food or relationships or perfectionism is a big one for me. Like, we will be mastered by something. And I want to be a servant of God who is good and the only one worth serving. So as we seek to follow and to serve, I think there are some things we can glean from this. So first, the captured girl reminds me of, we're not given her name, so I just called her the captured girl. She reminds me of the fact that sometimes servanthood is not fun. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations that we would rather not be in. We are asked to do things that we would rather not do. And we can push through and be servants anyway. So this captured girl was captured. She was brought into Naaman's household against her will. And we're not given this in the text, but we can presume that she's probably not super psyched to be there. So it would have been really easy for her to say, you know what, this guy captured me. I don't want to be here. Let him rot with leprosy. But instead, she suggests that he go and see Elisha for healing. So when we find ourselves kind of thinking about the difficult scenarios we find ourselves in, as we are seeking to serve God, if bitterness and spite are seeking to take root in our hearts, I think we can remember the captured girl and the fact that she pushed through her circumstance so that healing could reign. And she believed in Elisha, the prophet, the man of God, and the healing that Yahweh could bring. So that's the first thing. The captured girl can remind us that servanthood is not always fun, but we can still serve well. So next, the Riverside Servants is the title that I have given to Naaman's servants as he's kind of I picture throwing a tantrum and this group of men being incredulous because they're like, this is so easy. Why aren't you going to go do it? If he had said to do something great and big, you would have had no issue. So they are the ones who ultimately encourage Naaman to go and do what is necessary to seek healing. And this group, the Riverside Servants, they remind me of the fact that servanthood and discipleship is long-suffering. Again, we don't get this from the text. I'm presuming a little, but I picture that these people were serving Naaman kind of for the long haul, that maybe they had been with him for a long time. And they probably had seen everything. And still, they encouraged him toward life. Still, they served him well. And so I think that the Riverside Servants, when we find ourselves exasperated on the long walk of discipleship, we can remember them and remember that despite they were living alongside a master that was nothing compared to ours, they continued on their task. They didn't just write Naaman off. They kept going. They let him do his thing, and then they led him toward healing. So we can see the long suffering of servanthood and pushing through that anyway. The dedication, I will say. And lastly, we have Gehazi. I hesitate to say that Gehazi was a wicked man. I think that we actually have a lot in common with Gehazi because in his mind, he was doing the right thing. Maybe like Elisha made a mistake. He needed to get this reward. He needed to receive this gift from Naaman. I'm going to take matters into my own hands, overstep my bounds, but in order to get this. And as we know, it did not work out well for Gehazi. So I think that oftentimes as servants of the living God, we seek to overstep our bounds, I will say. We think that we know best, and we just kind of go down that road. And Gehazi found himself in hot water too, because he went on to lie about it. So I think that Gehazi, as we think about servanthood, Gehazi can be a cautionary tale for us of what it looks like to abuse servanthood, because just because we're servants doesn't mean we serve well. So ultimately, all of this comes down to the fact that being a servant of God is an honor. Servanthood is not something of serving Jesus is not something to be shouldered. It's a gift, but it's also a responsibility. So with the captured girl and the Riverside servants, we see examples of what it means to serve well. With Gehazi, we see examples of what it means when we try to usurp the wisdom that really belongs to the Lord. So, as we seek to serve God, as we seek to be faithful servants, I want to encourage us to remember this story, remember the servants who pushed Naaman toward healing, and know that when we serve well, the kingdom can and will come. So, with that, again, First United Methodist Church, I love you, I think of you, I pray for you. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful Thursday. I pray you go into it knowing that you serve a good master and that he can be trusted. So in the meantime, I look forward to seeing all of you very soon.